I'm here with Pastor Brian Field, who oversees Calvary's local and global outreach. He's our missions pastor. Thanks for joining me, Brian.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this weekend I'm going to be talking about the mission of the church. It's not just the mission of the church as a whole, the corporate body, the organized body called Calvary Community Church. It's our mission. I'm going to emphasize that every believer in Christ is a part of this message and mission and movement that God launched through the finished work of Jesus Christ. And then the Holy Spirit came and is empowering the church. And now the church is to move from the Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the ends of the earth. And you're a big part of what we do, organized as a church to reach our local community, even reach into our body with some folks, and then around the world. So I'm excited to hear some of the stuff that's been going on. It's been about 6 or 8 weeks now that we've been in under the stay-at-home order, and talk a little bit about what's been happening in our Jerusalem, maybe within our own body or right here, how we've been helping folks that are hurting here.
For sure. So it's been very exciting, just first of all, to see the opportunities that have come up and the way that just us as a body has responded through this time within our own body. And right when quarantine hit, as a staff and elders, we made 12,500 phone calls that went out over the first 3 weeks. And through that, asked, how can we be praying? Are there any needs that you have that we might be able to help with? And through
we mobilized the whole staff and some of our elders. It was really a great activity.
It was, absolutely. And so we did those, and then the needs started to come in, and we collected those, and they went to different teams at the church and care and missions, and a lot of people involved in that. But we started the crisis response group, was one of the things, with over 200 volunteers who had already been background checked. One of the biggest needs we were seeing was vulnerable individuals who couldn't go shopping for groceries and that kind of thing, that were really needed to stay at home. And so we started that group and started sending out the needs, and amazing to see how quickly they've just been picked up. We've had over 100 different requests that have been fulfilled through that, and that's ongoing. So each week we still have volunteers going weekly to go drop off groceries for many. A really cool story too with that. There was one of the cases, a senior that had a roommate, and they were praying and just did not know what to do about food, praying about who should we call, and we're just really kind of starting to get stressed out. It was right at the beginning, and within an hour of them praying, they received a phone call from Calvary, and through that they were just like overjoyed, and they just knew it was from God, and then we've been able to begin giving groceries. So that's a cool little story on that.
Is that one of those where it's continued too? We wasn't just a one time, because they can't go out because
that's right.
They're high risk. We've been able to take food to them. They don't have family and others who can do that for them, and so we've been able to step in and care for those folks that way.
We're doing that weekly. We've also, there's been financial need, and those that have lost jobs, and where we can, we've tried to help with loss of income and help meet financial needs from those within our Calvary body as well. And CARE's been involved with that as well. They're making 80 to 100 phone calls a week, doing follow-up and care, and between them and there. So it's been amazing to see just on those fronts.
And I think I was going to say, some folks might not know that group you're talking about, the crisis response group, when you get a need, you post it to a part of our database. It's a way we can communicate with these folks, and then they can see that and take that. And as soon as someone takes it, then it's not available for others. So we just meet those needs. We're not duplicating. We're able to meet those needs directly. And I know that's been a blessing to both those who have been served and those who are serving.
It's been such a great system for us, and we really started utilizing it after the Woolsey Hill fires and with the disaster response group that established, and that's still going. And I can talk about that too when we get to our Judea section.
Yeah.
But I said this, I was on that Facebook Live thing on Tuesday, and I said, it's just amazing to see how quickly our volunteers within this group will pick up these needs. We'll send it out, and then we can check and see. And normally within like 5 or 10 minutes, you just see they're all taken by different people. And I just
Okay.
thank God for those names and pray for those individuals. And it's so encouraging to see how our body's leaning in to want to help and serve in this.
Talk about now, if we move beyond our Jerusalem into, we've just sort of divided this for our own purposes, but into the Judea, right, kind of into our local community. What are some of the things that you and your team are doing there?
Sure. Yeah. So we're continuing, with stay-at-home order and quarantine. Some of our ministries have had to close down, like Tuesday Meals and Winter Shelter, which are big ministries for us on Tuesdays. We do that in conjunction with Harbor House, and we're one of 7 locations each week where people can get a hot meal and then a place to sleep during the winter. But one of the ways that we've adjusted on those fronts is providing resources and funding for our homeless community to be able to find shelter. And we've done that in conjunction with Harbor House, helped on that front.
Yeah, they changed their approach a little bit, didn't they? Because the way all the 7 churches were doing it would not necessarily be the best way to keep the virus from spreading. So we're working with them financially to provide housing for the homeless, maybe in local hotels. And
that's right. And Harbor House is just an amazing partner with us. Denise Cortez, Art Castruita, that works so well with the poor doing case management, and with our homeless community, know them so well. And so we feel so confident being able to give resources there, knowing that they're going to use those very well and ascertaining who needs the most in helping shelter those that need that help. And so that's been great. We're continuing with our Fresh Market ministry. We had to move it outside into the parking lot just for spacing with our volunteers and keeping our guests in their cars. And that's been great. We've shared some of that over the last few weeks with the Calvary body already. But, we've grown each week. We're having new people, probably 10 to 15 to 20 sometimes new guests every week driving up and getting registered. One of the two things I'll say on this front. One, we've just had such faithful volunteers in that ministry for 7 years. And Phil and Gina Cody, Mary Tucker, and I can't name them all, but just faithful. And they've been serving this time. And we've asked them during this time to just because they're in a more vulnerable age bracket to stay home. And so we've had basic 90% of our volunteers for that ministry have been staying home. And so we've just seen so many more people come on board during this season. And JD Lasky's brought a ton of high school, like
young guys, mostly young guys, right?
They're young guys and women, and really amazing just to see how that's gone. So that's been fun. And while they're, one of the really neat parts of it too, is we have them kind of serpentine through the parking lot because we were going so far out into the street, we had to adjust on that way, but it gives us the opportunity. Then they start coming an hour and a half early before we open just to get in line. And we get to walk up and down those rows and just have individual connections and talks and encouragement and praying with so many of these people. And there's tears. So often
I got to see that on Tuesday. I got to see your team that kind of spaced out. And they've all kind of got a role, but it's kind of, some of them in that early part of the line, it's almost like a phony role. It's just so they can spend some time chatting and praying with folks. And I loved seeing that on Tuesday.
And we've built such great relationships with so many of these guests, and they're so thankful for it. And it's been a great community for so long. So that's just a highlight of the week for us, is getting to be there on Tuesday mornings and see Fresh Market go on. We're still doing food pantry as well on Monday afternoons, and helping many more families on that front. Thanks to everyone who's just contributed with our food pantry and bringing more. And we've also been able to give to other organizations. This past last week, we gave James Storehouse Food, that they were able to give groceries to more than 25 at-risk families. We've given surplus items to Ventura County Rescue Mission, Harbor House, and diapers to Ohana Health.
So when folks drop off too much food at Calvary that we can't distribute right away, we're making sure it's not just sitting there. We're getting it out as much as we can, and getting it to other resources and partners in the community. I love that. And let me ask you, as you deal with like the Fresh Market, the food pantry, those two, you got the non-perishable items with the food pantry, things that can sit on a shelf. The fresh market is the perishable items like frozen meats and vegetables and fruits and all those kinds of things, dairy products. About how many families do you think we're able to feed on a weekly basis, or individuals? I think you were telling me about 350, 375 with fresh market. What do you think with the combination of those things?
So between fresh market and food pantry, I think we're near 500 individuals that we're feeding.
And then our sponsorship of what was our free meals program, where we're giving money to Harbor House to provide those meals, and the place to stay and all that's included too. So 500 to 700 families are probably being affected by our food distribution weekly.
And our Lunches of Love ministry is still running each week, so they're dropping off within the Harbor House program as well for more people to get food on a daily basis, just takeaway food. So that's
I love that. I love that
well.
We can love our neighbors in that way. And I know Trish Caruth and others on your team, some of your key volunteers, as you mentioned, have really rolled up their sleeves, and they've had to get creative in how to get lunches of love to those who are homeless and in need. We've had to get creative, like you said, in creating that maze through the parking lot for Fresh Market. So thank you for you and your team to continue to do what we've always done, but we're doing it differently right now because we're trying to do it safely for our guests and for our volunteers.
I do just want to mention Angel Threads as well, because they're just so faithfully continuing to serve, and I didn't want to leave them out. And that's another one that we're just so thankful for. And they're
making masks now, right?
Oh no,
sorry. The blanket ministry is making masks. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Angel
Threads
is getting close.
Good transition.
Yeah,
this is
Angel Threads is getting close to folks.
Yeah, that's right. I guess if we jump to Samaria, if we want to call it that, in terms of our regional work or working with marginalized.
Yeah, beyond our local community here.
Right. We've taken the disaster relief help group, and that's the one. If you click on our front page of the website, you don't have to be background checked or anything, but the I Want to Help button, that'll link you to that group. We have over 800 volunteers now serving in that group.
So that's about 1,000 people between the two groups, the group that's got a background check and can go a little further into helping in the home or whatever. And then the other group can help us get the things we need for distributions, like the ones you're going to talk about, that we've been able to do. Some great opportunities have come up for us with some hospitals and other things. Explain some of that.
So it's been more project-based. We made a connection to the different hospitals, one being Valley Presbyterian Hospital, and then both the state and federal VA hospitals down at the Veterans Administration down in Los Angeles. And Michelle Wright, Annie Schauberg have been leading those efforts for our team. Within that, we've started a new face mask sewing team, and our blanket ministry had led out with this early on making face masks. They continue to make them. They're making them for like our Fresh Market volunteers each week too, with like these custom designs. It's just been such a blessing. So this group has over 50 members that's now making sewing face masks with the goal. I think we're trying to get 4,000 to 5,000 of these masks done. We also have others donating.
That's a lot of masks. That'll help a lot of people because they can wash these and reuse them, these kind of masks.
And reuse them. And so we're trying to provide, there's 1,100 veterans at the VA living on the premises and another 1,500 staff members. And we've made several deliveries down there already delivered 1,000 masks, and they're saying that we need them, and they're going to be used.
They'll take more.
And they'll take more. And we also have handwritten cards that are going into each one of the bags that the mask goes into that says "Made with the Love of Jesus." And
they're handwritten. It's not something we've mass produced with our logo. This is someone wrote that note, so that person knows a human being cares for you in Jesus' name. That's great. I love that. Right.
So there's been some neat opportunities just on those deliveries, praying with nurses and administration and having them just share how much that meant. Which has been really neat opportunities as well at those hospitals, because they're on the front lines. There's fear. They have families. They have so much going on. We're so thankful for everybody in
now explain at the VA hospital. It's not only the people who are in the hospital, the patients, but the VA has also become a location for the homeless who are veterans, right? And they've
Right.
set up like a tent city, and we've helped with some of that.
So during quarantine, they have taken all the homeless veterans in LA and tried to congregate them to quarantine on the VA itself. And so that's another thing. Our disaster relief help group has donated tents, tarps, snacks, waters, and we got to deliver those down there as well. And there's still opportunity to do that just to care for homeless veterans who are right now in quarantine. They're kind of at the tent location, hoping that a bed will open up with the VA. So
okay. So they're hoping these folks that are homeless they're waiting maybe for something in the hospital, but a lot of them are at high risk too. We've learned that's part of the reason they're there. And being homeless, if they just go to normal homeless facilities or sleep on the street, they could spread some of this among themselves. So this is an organized activity by the VA, and we got to step in and partner with them. And what a great open door. God has just opened some doors we don't normally have. And because of the generosity of folks at Calvary and with their dollars, with their time, with their energy, we've been able to do a lot more than we anticipated when we first talked about moving our activities off campus. And just love that you and your team have done such a great job, and so many great volunteers have helped you.
They have, and I do have just amazing people, this team, and how they've leaned in. Even Lisa Sislow, who came in as our new global outreach director, we haven't been able to send one trip since she's been on board. I call her the Grim Reaper of short-term trips. That's our joke.
All she's done is canceled them all, right?
She's just canceled them all so far. But
and she has been working for us, what, maybe 3 months?
Since January.
Since January,
but she's managed this crisis response team since we've been in quarantine. Just done a phenomenal job making those connections with the volunteers and assessing the need. And there's still more work. There's ongoing work that goes on with that, but she's just done a great job. I want to mention that. We've got Corey Donville making pickups to 11 different grocery stores each week, and leading that charge. And he's done a great job for us there.
You've got Lynn Eriks and
Brittany Mann with child sponsorship and helping us with communications.
And you've had some volunteers like Sherry Serwinski and others who've helped in the office. And a lot of them were helping you during some of the fire recovery stuff we were doing. And they've continued to work on some of those cases still, while at the same time, many of them have transferred in to help us organize and execute some of the stuff related to the needs of our community and of our region, as you're talking about, even with the VA hospital.
And then there's been such a momentum, I think, that's happened for us on our local outreach efforts since Woolsey Hill fires and all that happened through disaster recovery and the impact that we've even been able to have with other organizations and networks and volunteers who have just leaned in so much over the last year and a half, 2 years. So it's been really amazing to see.
It's almost as if the Lord prepared us with, I hate to say it, but with the fire and even the shooting, it kind of changed our posture toward being ready to flex and be creative. And we've really had to do that in this season. And I know even with the mask, the blanket ministry making the mask, you've also had folks, including our partners, the Chinese Christian Church, who've donated masks to us to be able to be distributed, some of the ones that are more disposable. And that's been helpful to the VA and even a couple other hospitals we've been able to give those to. So we're grateful for those who have given us hundreds, if not thousands, of masks that have been able to be distributed.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's been a ton of generosity. Annie Schauberg's garage was just filled, has been filled. It's been the drop-off spot. So thank you to everyone who's given on that front.
And as folks give to the offering, that stuff is going to make a difference. We're still working toward giving away 20% in this year. That was our goal with 2020, give away 20% of everything that came in. Last year was 17%. In the budget cycle we're in now, the goal was 20%. At first we thought maybe that was going to get hampered by this, but because of folks' generosity, it looks like we're going to be able to work hard on getting that to that 20% level here as we conclude. We turn the corner, I'll call it that, not conclude, but we turn the corner on our 2020 vision at the end of this year. What are we doing then? I know in the last week or so, you've been getting a lot more of an understanding of what some of our global partners are going through, and we've been able to provide money for food and relief in Africa and the Caribbean, in Southeast Asia. Talk about now, take us to the ends of the earth. We've talked about Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria. Take us to the ends of the earth. What are some of the things we've been investing in and doing? We can't send teams, but we've been able to use our partners and partner with them. Talk about some of those.
Well, yeah, first off, I just think we have some amazing partners around the world that I'm so thankful for, that are planting churches and running schools and discipling and sharing the hope of the gospel. And so just rich partnerships of missionaries, organizations all over the world, and whom we miss not being able to go see right now and had to cancel those trips. But since this has hit, we've had great connection, and one is just getting prayer, knowing about the prayer needs of our partners and our 24/7 prayer team, and all those who've been involved with that.
I forgot to mention that. Not only have people given of their time, their dollars, their energy, but that those 520 people are praying 1 hour a week through the rest of this month, and we started 6-8 weeks ago. They're making a big difference, because I think it's helping us have wisdom in knowing how to partner with our partners.
That's right. Yeah. So we've been able to pray for them in this last week even, and we've been just hearing of the need. And this week we were able to really do something about it, and on some great levels in South Asia, Zimbabwe, Uganda, Dominican Republic, where they're on the front lines meeting desperate situations of people that are just trapped in their homes, who are the quarantine in some of these countries. You just are not allowed to leave your home whatsoever.
Yeah, it's been a crazy combination of the government's rules. And you were saying in one of the Southeast Asia areas we work, that they had given migrant workers 4 hours notice to leave one region. It's not even enough time to drive from that region where they were working temporarily back to wherever they live, and they got trapped because some of these countries require papers, or you're arrested or you're fined. It's very heavy. And in developing countries, the other angle, not only have the government done some interesting things, but also in some of these developing parts of the world, people only have enough to buy their food for that day. And so when they get shut home and they have no work, they have no food. There's nothing left. There's nothing on the shelves.
That's right. And some desperate stories, some sad stories of in Zimbabwe with our partner in the Crowdises, and they just got word of a woman in a village nearby who had just been so desperate and had not had any food and no contact with anyone, and found that she had taken her life. And just desperate times, and the Crowdises have just been jumping into action how they can, delivering food. Each week we were able to send support. This week they're going to be able to feed 200 plus families with the support that we're providing there. Uganda with another great partner, and Africa Renewal Ministry, getting to help with their network of churches get food out into those villages where there's just some really desperate people.
Some of our folks know our friend Pastor Peter and the network they have there. Of course, we work with the Dongos all the time, and they're such a dear partner with God Care School and
Life Water in Uganda as well.
Yeah. And so we've got some great partners on the ground in some of these places. And so we're able to send, in some cases, hundreds, some cases, thousands of dollars to help them. We've also tried to continue helping with projects that we already were committed to, because some of those are so important. In places like the Dominican Republic, Southeast Asia, Zimbabwe, Uganda, we've been getting money to these folks so they can get food. And I love that they're doing food they're the kinds of things that could sit on the shelf. They're the kinds of things that provide the right nourishment. It's not just, we're not sending Oreos or something. We're sending things that provide children and adults substance that they need, things that will give them strength and help them fight off a virus even.
Yeah.
How about the needs you're making? You're doing some interesting things in Southeast Asia, you were telling me this morning, with some of the pastors that we've been supporting in that area. Sure. It's been a big focus. Talk about that. You were on a meeting this week, and we got to partner with in some unique ways.
It is, and great partner of ours that's doing church planting and have workers that are going into unreached villages and sharing the gospel. And, it's been strict quarantine there as well. And millions that are living on nothing and need to work each day to eat each day kind of situations. But funding we've been able to give has helped these workers who are sustained themselves by the churches that they pastor and haven't been able to meet at all, so haven't been able to get any support. So we're helping support these pastors, church planters, so that they can continue the work of going into their villages and meeting needs, even providing cell phone additional bandwidth for like digital plans so that they can conduct their church services
The cell phones that
with the cell phone.
have. Yeah, most people, even in the developing world, have a cell phone. So this is a way to help those churches meet.
And there's some beautiful pictures just of these families gathered around, and they link several cell phones together to get broader coverage. They're telling us a bit about that, just ingenious ways that they're continuing to be the church in Southeast Asia in these little unreached villages or very rural, poor places, and yet gospel's still going to those places. They're also, good stuff on there.
I love hearing this, and that's why I wanted to do this with you, because every time you and I talk, even in emails that you're sending to our partners as we're, initiating checks to go to their ministries for these specific needs that their people are facing all around the world. I just keep thinking, boy, the Calvary family needs to hear about this, because this is a result of their prayers. This is a result of their volunteering. This is a result of their giving. I know there's some folks who have volunteered in a lot of your ministries who had to step back because they've been at high risk. And we know that they needed to do that. They've been faithful, some of them for months and years with you already. Cool to see new people step up. We know that some people have been affected financially, and then to see others step up and fill in that gap. And the funds we've been talking about here, whether it's here in our Jerusalem, our Judea, our Samaria, into our region and beyond, and then even to the ends of the earth, that's not like people are just handing us envelopes. This is all coming through our regular giving as a church to the general fund. We're investing here and around the world to help hurting people right now because of this global pandemic. As you think about it, Brian, what are two or three brief stories that have emerged at any one of these levels, the Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, the ends of the earth kind of level? What are two or three that have gripped your heart and kind of have gotten in your mind where you've been sharing these with others, of what we get to be a part of, either on the need side, the opportunity, or what we see God allowing us to do to make a difference?
I think in terms of just on a local level, the relationships I see they're getting that continue, and seeing a grandmother. We were there was a grandmother who had her grandson in the car at Fresh Market recently, and it was his birthday. And our volunteers found out about it and circled the car and began to sing happy birthday to this little 5-year-old boy. And he was so excited.
He was excited. He wasn't scared when you circled the car. But yeah, that's great. On a spontaneous moment to serve a family and to serve a 5-year-old.
And this grandmother was just in tears over the whole thing. And these little connections that we wonder, what is God doing in the midst of it? And yet they're just opportunities for us to live incarnationally and to share and show the love of Jesus as we go. And
sometimes it's just seeds, right? We're just planting seeds.
Yeah.
And they may get watered and harvested by us in the future, or maybe somebody else who knows Jesus, or another ministry, another church down the line.
For sure.
How about something that you shared with me a story this morning of some of the response when you got to pray among the staff at the VA hospital. You were praying with some nurses and doctors.
Yeah, it was the other. It was
the other hospital we've been helping in the Valley. There's another one that we were able to help with some masks and things. But what is the response of some of the medical folks you prayed with? Because I had a similar response right here locally.
For sure, we just were able to drop those supplies, and I just asked if I could pray with some nurses and administrators who'd come down, and they said, yeah, we'd love that. And we circled, and I prayed. And the next week, Michelle Wright had gone down to do as a part of another delivery, and got to connect again with one of the nurses who had just said, that was such a meaningful time. I sense God's presence. I've never been prayed for like this before. Us as a staff that was something that we've never been a part of. And it actually, it gave me the boldness to talk about my faith to my coworkers, and just gave a bridge for conversation.
That's great.
Just
and we wouldn't have those opportunities. We hate this virus. I pray God ends this soon, but God also is opening doors for us, and opening a door. While you pray for this group of medical professionals, they get to then carry on that witness about what it meant to their coworkers who don't know Christ, that someone prayed over them.
Right.
How about a couple stories you've heard, one story even, that you've heard from around the world and our partners, a specific story of, I know you were on a conference call with partners in Southeast Asia. Any stories come from those that we haven't covered?
Just the humility of the workers in that region who, the main director of this ministry we support said that they were sharing, and the worker had said, they're going out, they're doing a lot of education into these villages, because the remedies in this developing world of ringing bells and doing different things to ward off the evil spirits, and
some of it they take actually makes them more vulnerable. Some of the things they say to eat or do, or
right.
There's some folklore that's very dangerous for these communities. And can I say something? The only reason why we're being cautious here is that some of our partnerships in some parts of the world, the reason we're being a little vague is because the governments are pretty harsh toward Christianity. Yeah. And even some we've been able to, in the past, even 2-3 years ago, talk about more widely. We can't. And we're getting resources into some of those areas as well right now. And I can't imagine how that's opening up the gospel for our partners on the ground. But go ahead about the humility of these folks going into these places. They have nothing themselves, and they're going in to serve others.
Yeah, and just asked, aren't you afraid going into these villages and serving how you are? And the worker had said, if I die, I get to go be with Jesus. What's better than that? And
it's the Apostle Paul saying, for me to live is Christ, to die is gain. That's what's meant by that.
And they're being careful, but they're educating, and they're doing an incredible amount of good into these really rough, impacted environments that the social distancing is just impossible. In some of these places,
slums people live in, that they're right on top of each other.
Yeah.
Bad water sources, all that.
Yeah. They're just, in those cases, it's like they need to go, they need to be light, they need to share hope and educate and do these things. And they're doing it joyfully and saying, if I get to go be with Jesus now, all the better, but he's got a purpose for me right now, and I'm going to go and do it. And so
it's humbling to
hear some of those stories, for sure.
You and I both know, as you travel the world, the partners we have around the world, I come back recommitted to being more sacrificial and others oriented in service for Christ when we're around our partners in the world, especially the developing world. If you were to summarize what the prayers that people have offered up for our local and global outreach at this time, the dollars people have given to the general fund that have been invested now around the world, and we're going to continue to look for ways to do that and follow up on some of the investments we've already made. So the prayers, the dollars, the time and energy people put in, what would be a way you'd summarize what you would want people to know who are part of the Calvary family of what God is doing locally and globally to communicate the love and hope of Christ around the world?
Yeah. I think the word faith is the first word that comes to my mind, and to see how Calvary as a body has just responded together. And I think in times of uncertainty, in times of crisis, that can just be the perfect soil for our faith to grow and for us to lean in and to say, God, how do you want to use me? How do I walk in faith and not walk in fear? How do I invest into things that have eternal significance? How do I live my life in such a way that I'm gonna be light, I'm gonna be hope, and I'm gonna share the love of Christ? And so I've just seen so much of that locally and globally, and the opportunity that we had. I shared on Tuesday in my Facebook Live just about the fish and the loaves and the opportunity of multiplication, and how this kingdom of God principle of when we just give this small amount into each one of us, to Jesus, and faith, what he can do with it. And we've seen that. We've seen opportunity, and the second word was just opportunity, and the opportunities they've opened through this. I don't think we won't be the same church after this, and for so many reasons, but from so many doors that have opened, and what God's doing, and the amount of people that are being engaged, it's been a really unbelievable time.
I think talking to you has reminded me, there's a lot of debate about whether churches open or don't open, and we've talked about when we'll do that or not do that. But I have to say, Calvary, talking to you is a great reminder. Calvary never closed, and as people have been engaged with us at whatever level they've been able to, we have put our energy and our thoughts and our dollars and our time and our heart into helping people in our church family, in our local community, in the greater region, to those who are most marginalized, and even to the uttermost parts of this planet. And talking to you has reminded me that there'll be a day when our worship and our fellowship together and our service will return, the activities will return to our campus, but we don't have anything to reopen because we've never been closed, and the church is being the church. And I appreciate the patience of folks in understanding that part of the reason we're going to continue to follow the guidelines, one, is for the health of everyone and to respect and obey government as the scriptures tell us, but also we are seeing God open doors right now, and we're putting our energy and time and effort. So thank you to you, Trish, Lisa, your whole team on your staff, the volunteers. Thank you for being a good steward of the financial resources God has given us. I know you and Curtis Johnson, our executive pastor, and others talk about these things, think about these things, and you've got the mission task force you work with. There's just such a great balance in being proactively generous, but also being wise and good stewards. Thank you for your leadership in this way, Brian. Thanks for helping us stay on mission and keep the main thing the main thing.
I love what I get to do, and
it's obvious.
Humbled to be able to do it. So thanks, and so appreciate being here and you having me, and us getting to share more of what's been going on during this time.
I think people will be blessed by this. Blessings to you. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks so much.
Bye.